So I think we do have a few more folks that we are waiting to hop on here. We'll give it another minute as that's going on here. And since you all are new to being in the hot seat, we'll call it. I will be also mentioning some stuff in the chat to the group. So if people have questions, they can type those in. I'll wave those in front of you all towards the end with it. And then in terms of some homework and things like that, we'll cover that as well. And if you all want feedback from the group, I can always throw that out to the group for them to respond there in the chat, or if somebody does want to comment or wants to go live on here as well, I can unmute as well. If folks just want to raise their hand, you can do that at the bottom of the screen. Just hover over and it's a little hand to raise it, and then we can always have you chime in to ask one of the panelists a question. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Kyle Hoffman from the USTA Mid-Atlantic with you here today. Appreciate everybody jumping on. I know we've got a pretty fun topic, a hot topic, I think, for all of us in terms of as we're getting to what we're assuming this is going to be the new normal. And we're going to be covering, running programming through these COVID times with us today, and appreciate both of them being on. Kat DeSouza, who's with the Piedmont Tennis Association, and then Forrest Lodge, who's with the Sportable organization. So appreciate you both jumping in with us today. And as we get started here with some of the questions, we're going to be doing ladies first as we go roundtable discussion. Sorry, Forrest. So we're going to be introducing both of them. They'll both be getting same questions to be able to talk to you all a little bit about what their organizations do, how that kind of falls in with the programming and stuff that they've been operating in their plans for this year. I know several of you have questions that are listening in based around that as well. Please, again, feel free to use the chat feature to be able to ask those questions, and we will address any of those towards the end of the conversation. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. So first and foremost, Kat, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your organization and yourself.
All right, thank you, Kyle. So the Piedmont Area Tennis Association was incorporated, it'll be 2 years this September. So we're real new. And we had a full slate for 2020 until COVID hit, and it really kind of messed us up. What we thought it would. I was really afraid we were going to go under, but I'll tell you a little bit how we even came about first. Charlottesville hasn't had a CTA in about 10 years. It really just kind of fizzled. And some of the tennis directors at the larger clubs thought it would be beneficial to have a CTA so that that organization could do things that some of the pros were doing that they felt like they didn't have time to do, like JTT or tournaments, junior tournaments, mainly junior stuff, and then a few adult things as well. So I had been involved in the Charlottesville tennis community for about 5 years. And it was just determined that I would be the executive director, which was wonderful because it's been a dream of mine for a long time to have that role. So because of COVID, we just started doing things for fun. We offered yoga via Zoom. We had socials. This was pretty much from like March to June. Something just to keep the players engaged. And then once the courts opened up, we were able to offer some fun leagues because they didn't have USTA last year due to COVID. But now that we are able to do more, we think we're going to be working with Parks and Rec to offer more junior stuff. We didn't do any junior stuff last year except for a few school pods. But that's really where I feel like we need to get going, is working with juniors, offer camps, clinics at very low cost or free, so that we can get more junior players involved.
Great. And Forrest, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me. So I am a program manager for Sportable, which is a nonprofit adaptive sports organization based in Richmond, Virginia. A lot of programming that we do and events that we do are in Central Virginia, so in Richmond city limits and then the counties surrounding it. Our organization primarily serves people with physical disabilities and visual impairments. So for tennis purposes, that's wheelchair tennis and then some adaptive tennis as well. So if an athlete is ambulatory, they can walk, jog, or run. We tend to give them the choice of whether they want to play seated or if they want to play standing and running around and stuff. So our program kind of encapsulates both of that. I'd say primarily wheelchair tennis is our shtick when it comes to tennis, though. Our organization runs like 15, 16 plus sports. So myself as a program manager kind of oversees a lot of different ones, such as wheelchair basketball, soccer, kayaking. I can barely name them all because it's so many to keep track of. But tennis is something that I've come into a little bit more recently. Similar to what Kat was talking about, we had a lot of plans for 2020 that kind of got scrapped because of COVID. Two of them being a wheelchair tennis competitive tournament that we were going to host, and as well as a coaches development workshop with Jason Allen from USTA Wheelchair Tennis. So we actually decided to combine those this year to bring them back. And so in June, what Kat and I are working on together is a wheelchair tennis tournament called the Sportable River City Slam that will consist of divisions A through D, as well as juniors. And then in conjunction with that, at the same venue, we're doing the coaches development workshop with Jason Allen to train up tennis pros and others in our space to be more competent in teaching wheelchair tennis to our athletes in the region. And then, any of those, we're pretty much promoting that to the Mid-Atlantic region for people that want to get more knowledge in serving athletes with disabilities in wheelchair tennis. And then a recent development for that event is we're going to bring in Shelby Barron, a Paralympic wheelchair tennis player and assistant coach at University of Alabama's wheelchair tennis team, to come in and run a youth camp and clinic. Because we have a lot of junior athletes in Sportable's organization in Virginia, and then other surrounding Mid-Atlantic clubs that are similar to Sportable that serve youth with disabilities that just aren't in that competitive space of tennis yet, but have the potential to be tennis players at the junior level. So we found that, although they're not going to compete in our junior division, there's a unique opportunity to bring in Shelby and kind of give them that opportunity to to learn tennis in a unique space, but also observe, what their future could be in the sport by watching the tournament and stuff. So really, really exciting things that we have coming up that Kat and I are working on tirelessly, but it's really exciting. So we're pumped up to talk more about it.
And I know you both just kind of alluded a little bit to some of the overall goals and objectives for your organization, but kind of highlight there for me, Kat, just some of your main priorities for your organization.
Well, I'd say our main priorities, or like I said, is to get more offerings to juniors, because we've only really been able to cater to adults. And then we did allow high school players to participate in our leagues at no cost. We also have plans to work with Virginia Institute of Autism. So we're going to be working with that organization once they are comfortable participating in clinics, and that will all be free to those students. We had 8 kids lined up last spring. So once they're comfortable, we want to offer that again. So pretty much just being able to do more for juniors, offer some tournaments, continue the adult league play, or in some capacity, but really just focusing on juniors because they haven't been able to do much.
Okay. And what about for you, Forrest?
Our organization's mission is to create opportunities and transform lives. And when we first started about 15 years ago, it was just about providing just a basic opportunity to participate in whatever sport it was. And as we've grown, I've been at Sportable for over almost 5.5 years now. It's about what's next in each sport. So for tennis, when I was first running it, it was very recreational, come out and try it. We had some good coaches. It was very feel good. But there was nothing like competitive or developmental about a progression of skill for youth or even adult athletes that were new to the sport. So over the last couple of years, we've been focusing on some of our players that are local that are already competitive, that travel, to now bring that sort of programming back under the Sportable umbrella, get well-trained coaches in wheelchair tennis that are helping progress those athletes and keep them moving forward. And then also the development of a youth pathway. So that's what Kat is kind of helping in at the front end of that with me, is kind of heading up our youth progression and getting more kids involved in the sport, and then providing them a progression and pathway with the assistance of like the USTA NetGen, curriculum to kind of progress and provide them resources to progress in the sport. What you see across the country in adaptive sports is that sports like wheelchair basketball and sled hockey and track and field are very, very big at the youth level with a lot of participation, and tennis is lacking. And so it's a unique time of year when that wheelchair tennis competition takes place in the summer. It's the off season for basketball, and pretty much all the kids that play that can play tennis and play wheelchair tennis. So, what we're trying to help, kickstart with the USTA is getting those kids and those other sports involved in tennis and showcasing that it's a lifelong sport. It's a potential collegiate sport that they can pursue. You don't ride the bench in collegiate wheelchair tennis, you play. Regardless of your skill level, you can still play. And so it's a pretty attractive opportunity for us to promote to our kids and for their future and staying active in sport. So that's what makes me really excited about it. And I think that's a goal that we are hopefully going to continue. We have a program going now, a weekly program leading up to our tournament. And we think that tournament's going to be a great culmination of events with the camp and the competition to really boost and push forward tennis in our area and hopefully the Mid-Atlantic region as well.
Kyle?
Yes, good.
I add to that. So I didn't mention this only because like what the Piedmont Area Tennis Association kind of focuses on is more Charlottesville region, but last night Kyle isn't able to attend because he just traveled and is quarantining. But we worked with 4 junior tennis players. I'm sorry, Forrest. My bad. Forrest traveled to San Diego. But it was so much fun. There was 4 players. One kind of had more unique. They're all unique, but the one that I worked with, his arms got tired, whereas the other 3 players could maneuver in their chairs pretty well, push their wheels pretty easily. But this one child couldn't. He just had a hard time holding his racket and pushing the wheels. But what I'm getting at is that they had so much fun getting out there. We decided that for this one boy, volleys were the way to go for him because it just pushing the wheels were just too complicated. But the other 3 players, everybody just had a ball. So I have to say that is so wonderful to be involved in, to introduce these kids to tennis and to see them having so much fun.
Great. And I know we highlight a lot of the positives and things of what's going on, and it seems like it's all going great and well and super easy to do, but we all know as we're trying to implement these things, and just on a side note, if you've not got to experience or have seen or watched or witnessed players playing wheelchair tennis, it is a lot of work. It is not easy to just jump in and play with it. So there's a lot more to all this than I think sometimes people realize. But that being said, with COVID kind of playing a factor for all of us and running programming things over the past year, and flipping the switch here for a second, and we'll start with you, Kat, again. Talk about a little bit of the struggles of kind of reinventing your programs during COVID.
Well, I think if I can, I don't know. I just know for me personally, when COVID hit, I was devastated because I was so worried that our organization was just going to fall apart because we had only been in existence for like 6 months. So, here we are trying to generate revenue, offer programming. It was hard. It was very depressing. So for about a month, we just kind of, went with it. And then that's when I said earlier that we started I used to teach yoga. So it's like, every Saturday morning we had a yoga class for anybody that wanted to attend. via Zoom, and that was nice. And then we had those like happy hours where about 10 to 15 of us would meet via Zoom every Wednesday night. And then once we started hearing of courts opening, we just decided to offer some type of, I think we started with World Team Tennis because we had just bought a year. To offer World Team Tennis, you have to pay to use the website and all that. And we just spent $600 in February. And then in March thought, oh, great, we're not going to be able to use it. But we did offer one season of World Team Tennis, and that was a lot of fun. Even for that, we allowed high schoolers to play at no cost because we wanted to keep as many players engaged as possible. And then we started offering non-USTA leagues because USTA was not going to be offered last summer. So we actually benefited in a way, no offense to USTA, but because they didn't have leagues, then we could run leagues and we were able to generate a little bit of revenue and just survive, because that was kind of what I was worried about, was basically just our organization surviving. So now we're in a good place. We kind of shut down for the winter because the indoor facility that we used last year to have some socials isn't allowing guests, but that wasn't awful. That's okay. We actually played until I think January we stopped league play right before Christmas. But anyway, so we are in a good place. We survived during COVID. I think people in general had to be creative. You had to figure out ways to make things work. And fortunately we were able to do that.
And I think it's probably safe to say that everybody on this call has had some issue with trying to transition to go inside and or trying to just not knowing last year whether or not they're even going to run. So I can't even fathom what that was like, being a new organization trying to get off the ground, and then it sounds like almost immediately running into all the COVID issues from the beginning. So appreciate sharing for that piece as well. And so what about for you, Forrest?
Yeah, a lot of similarities, a lot of uncertainty, especially right there at the beginning of March. On like March 7th weekend of 2020, we had like one of our biggest events. It's just like a huge expo, essentially, where we had all of our sports and stations for athletes to come and try, for existing athletes to try new sports. It was a socialization piece. All community partners were there. It was great. And that was kind of like the momentum builder for the rest of the year to kind of kickstart our entire 2020. And then the following weekend was essentially when everything shut down. So it was quite the transition for us. And again, we had those uncertainties about existing anymore and kind of surviving COVID. At one point I was furloughed and wasn't even able to work or interact or do things in a capacity that I normally do. But luckily we got some support from the government during that time, and we were able to get back online and do a lot of virtual stuff. So we have different teams in some of the programs like wheelchair rugby and basketball and lacrosse and power soccer that we were kind of able to organize Zoom sessions. So we would, whether it's finding online video resources like training videos or watching old game film and kind of breaking down the different fundamentals of the sport, those are ways that myself and our coaches got kind of creative to get our players together and really stay active. I'm in no way any sort of personal trainer or, workout expert. But we did, myself and our other staff members did live workouts on Facebook, and whether it was like seated or standing, we just had to get creative to keep our membership engaged, just so that they knew that we were still there for them, regardless if we could, do our normal programming. And so we did that for a while. I became a social media expert just because I'm the youngest person on staff. So that was just kind of a natural handoff to me. And, luckily I use it relatively regularly, so it wasn't too difficult. And yeah, it was difficult. It was tiresome. At a certain point, it was getting to be a bit much and kind of stale. But, as we were getting towards that June timeframe, we started to see other community organizations in Virginia and across the board in the adaptive sports world kind of start to do some things in person. with certain protocols like masking and social distancing, temperature checks, you know, the whole nine that we're used to at this point now. And the first two sports that were to come back were cycling and tennis. And so my coworker Kyle took over cycling and ran that twice a week, and I took over tennis and ran that twice a week. And you know, we since then have been able to gradually return programs to in person, and pretty much every sport for the most part has come back in a certain aspect. We still have a lot of guidelines in place to you know, mitigate any sort of COVID transmission. And we've been very successful in doing so. We haven't had any issues whatsoever, other than people having their own, you know, personal issues outside of programming and having to deal with that and make sure they quarantine and all that good stuff. But for the most part, we've been very successful. And like Kat mentioned on the development and fundraising side of things, we've been shocked and very, very surprised at how supportive the community has been, even during these tough financial times for a lot of people. So we've had some of our most successful campaigns and fundraising over these times, just because people acknowledge how important our services are, you know, during these times and beyond, because of their own experiences not being able to engage in social activity or sports. So that's been a very exciting opportunity for us to kind of learn new technologies and learn new ways to engage our population and engage our donors in that space, without, you know, our normal in-person events. So it's all been a great experience. There's been a lot of new programs that have popped up that wouldn't have happened if COVID didn't happen. I started a brand new soccer program that's now serving over 20 plus kids that weren't doing Sportable programming before. Our tennis programming and tournament plans, I think, have ramped up pretty heavily since, you know, I took it over in June, and I think we've gotten a lot of great progression in that. And COVID somewhat kind of helped with that, because I'd be in the middle of wheelchair basketball season right now. We're not competing right now, so I have a lot more time to really focus on it. And even we're potentially starting pickleball, which I don't know how USTA feels about that being a tennis organization, but it's very popular amongst our recreational athletes that aren't, you know, they don't have that aspiration. Because like you mentioned, wheelchair tennis is very difficult. Like if you can't move very well, then you're not going to be any good covering the court. So for those athletes that may not, you know, have that ceiling or that potential to get to that point, it's a great alternative sport to kind of, you know, they like the idea of tennis, but just getting to the ball is a lot more difficult. So pickleball is a great alternative that we found is just as easy to kind of, you know, implement for our athletes. It's the same concept. They get 2 bounces, and you can play alongside able-bodied people, and they get 1 bounce. The athletes in chairs get 2 bounces, and all the rest of the rules are the same. So it's been a really exciting time to kind of try new things and see what works and what doesn't. And so we found that, you know, although there were a lot of challenges earlier on, and there still are with a lot of the protocols that we have to put in place, there have been a lot of great things that have come out of being able to explore new opportunities.
Okay. And and I know you both have mentioned some of the programs and things that you all have been running over the past year. I'll start again with you, Kat. Just talk a little bit about the strategies about getting those programs off the ground, and just kind of a little bit about how the communities, I think Forrest mentioned that too, just about the part with just how they're engaging more than they have even in the past. But if you just want to kind of elaborate a little more on that. Okay.
We started off small once we did get back outside. So what happened was, in Charlottesville, the outdoor courts, public courts is what I should say, public courts, including high schools, they took I guess, unlocked them in June. And that was the same in Richmond too. Everything was locked until, I guess, early June. And we just slowly kind of started with maybe, I don't know, we'll say 30 people. And then slowly, other people started to learn of what we were doing. And I have to say that I couldn't have done this by myself without a few people on my board who were key players in Charlottesville. Because Charlottesville is a relatively small tennis community. So I really needed assistance getting more players, especially with the higher divisions. So it just grew, word of mouth, social media. We did have some corporate memberships, which So to play in our leagues, adults have to join PATA at $25 a year, and we don't require juniors to join. They're free. And we're hoping that they continue to play free. Tournaments will be another story, but league play will be free. And we kind of use that as a selling point for our adults to join, is that we want to be able to offer free programming, whether it's to high schoolers, to adaptive players. So it just kind of slowly grew. And then we just got a lot of people on our side and felt like we were offering a lot. And a lot of the tennis directors are in favor of what we're doing. In fact, one facility, I won't name because someone's on here that knows the facility, will not allow guests. However, they will allow our league players to play outside. They did that in the fall and they're doing it now. So we have gained a strong foothold in Charlottesville, and I'm really delighted about that. But it's also about relationships. You've got to have a good relationship with these people, or else they're going to be like, see you later. So fortunately, I and most of people on the board have a great relationship with the tennis directors. And so one facility in particular is just being really, really kind and letting us play there outside, even when guests weren't allowed to play. So I think it's just building those relationships, maintaining them, being kind and respectful and honoring their wishes. So anyway, so that's kind of where we are.
And that's a key point, though, because I think Ryan mentioned that on the call last month too. I mean, relationships are huge in all of our missions, whether you're a big CTA or a small CTA. Engaging with the community, having those partnerships, relationships. For that, I mean, you all are doing great things too. But I think a lot of times people aren't familiar with you or don't know you. Sometimes it makes things a lot harder. So, getting yourself out there and getting your mission and your priorities out there, I think greatly helps in terms of helping you meet your goals. So it's a great point. Forrest, what about for you?
It's a lot of the same. I mean, the relationships are huge for us. So like networking and really cultivating those community partnerships, especially during the times when we were not engaging with those community partners during COVID, when we were, not able to be in person, was really key. So, following up with our, typical facilities that we use for different programs. I mean, Sportable works out of a relatively small office, and that's where we have our office space and some storage for our equipment. Otherwise, we don't have our own facility to do sports. So everything that we do includes some sort of connection to a community partner that allows us to use their space, whether it involves a rental fee or not. A lot of times we have such good relationships with county parks and rec departments or certain facilities that have space that they are willing to donate to us in kind, which are huge for us to save money as a nonprofit. So even right now, in back in June, Chesterfield County Parks and Rec gives us free tennis court space and provides us a permit so that we can go and put up signs and say, hey, Sportable on Tuesdays and Thursdays have these all 4 courts reserved from 5:30 to 8:30. And typically the community is very open and responds well to, they see a bunch of athletes in wheelchairs playing tennis. I mean, what are you going to say? So there's a little bit of leverage there, but the community partnerships are huge, and they were very, very key and the return to play for us, because without them giving us access or being open to participation, we wouldn't have anything. And a lot of our typical facilities were and still are closed to us for certain sports, and we've had to rely on community partners for certain activities that we haven't in the past, whether that's tennis, basketball, any other sport that we may not have used them for facility space or resources. We've had to kind of lean on them a bit more. And because of the existing relationship and the good work that we do, it's been successful, and they've helped us out a lot. And I think it's, something that everyone has to do to be successful in the sports space, especially when you're planning events and you don't have access to your own facilities. So, a case in point, next week, there's a big tennis event, in Richmond that's going to involve a lot of community partners that we're looking to have support us for our wheelchair tennis tournament in June. And Kat's going to help me facilitate some introductions, some mingling, and just some, just getting together and really promoting what we're trying to do with our tournament and the future of tennis for adaptive athletes in Richmond. And, for us, coming from where we're coming from, it should be a no-brainer for those organizations to be involved, to support us. But again, we can't go into that with that expectation and just expect them to do it. We have to cultivate that relationship. We have to, showcase a good, I can't think of the word right now, but just like showcase good intentions for what we're trying to do, and not say that we expect them to be involved, but we want those big entities that are involved in tennis to be involved with what we're trying to do. We want to be included in what is going on with tennis in the community, and not be this separate little silo, like, oh, it's the wheelchair players over here, and they do a great thing, but we don't have any. We want that involvement. We want the inclusiveness in our community. And tennis is one of the easiest sports to do that. Like I mentioned before, the sport is entirely the same, except you get 2 bounces as a role player. And obviously the equipment and some of the, nuances of play are a little bit different, but the inherent nature of the sport is super similar. And so that we think that that's a great way to do it. And there's other initiatives that I have personally for the sport locally. It's something where our athletes, if they're in the schools districts, they could be on a school team. Again, the sport is so similar that our role players could be on their school team if they're, high schools and their coaches are open to the idea. So those are some initiatives that, as schools become more in person and sports are a bit more mainstreamed after COVID dies down a little bit, those are some initiatives that I have and our program has to start trying to, spread across Central Virginia and the entire state. And then the potential development of a university program here in Richmond as well. So I've been connecting with a lot of universities that have collegiate wheelchair tennis across the country. And you really just need one student athlete to make it work, to get it started. And so that's another opportunity that we're looking to grow the sport in the Richmond area, just to have more impact. So a lot of cool things and a lot of strategies it's all around relationships and networking, as is most things in business. So, yeah.
Can I add to that? So I want to say that the event, just to plug Bridget in, because Bridget Reichert is a part of the Richmond Tennis Association, just to give them a little credit. So the Richmond CTA, which is RTA, is going to have this event next week at ACAC, and Mercedes-Benz is a sponsor for RTA. And so Mercedes-Benz has agreed to help this tournament in June. So I just want to give a little plug for Bridget, because they'll be running that tournament that I'm going to make sure Forrest meets some key people at next week.
Yeah, and I think some of the goals for some of the CTAs on the call today, and those that may not be joining us at the moment, have mentioned some of their goals and priorities of being able to create some bigger opportunities and things. And obviously one of the reasons why we started this was listening to you all of wanting to network outside of your local areas and things to do those. So, I mean, if there are things, just throwing this out there, going off script for a second, if there are bigger events and things that you all are looking to do, and wanting to go more across the section or more regionally, feel free to bring that up to myself or to Alex, depending on who your point of contact is, to kind of discuss some of those opportunities, and let's see what we can do to kind of, connect you all for that. So whether you're doing stuff in the adult space, junior space, wheelchair space, whatever it may be, we'd like to be able to help you guys achieve a lot of that. So please, feel free to reach out to us for any of those conversations as well. And so with that, I'm gonna end on the fun part here for Kat and Forrest. But Kat, again, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about next steps and what you have planned moving forward.
Well, I probably said it 5 times already. I feel like I've repeated myself a lot today. But really just trying to get to where we were pre-COVID. But like I think Forrest said, COVID has actually not been a bad thing across the board for PATA. We kind of call ourselves PATA. It's easier than saying the Piedmont Area Tennis Association. But to start getting in with red ballers, orange ballers, green dot, just bringing tennis to more players. That's what our mission is to try to offer tennis to everyone, whatever their situation is, and at a reduced cost, and just trying to really get more junior programming going. So that's what our, and keep, you know, the adult stuff going on too. And I don't know, that's where we are. And I love collaborating with Forrest. I just think that's fun. It helps us expand our vision, so that we can, and then Forrest and I are hoping to do some stuff in Charlottesville with adaptive players, not just the Virginia Institute of Autism, but they have a big wheelchair basketball community that we would like to reach out to. And I just think having Forrest knowledge with that community more than what I have, but, you know, I'm gaining some, but it's just nice to kind of go in with someone else who has been doing this for over 5 years. I think sometimes just collaborating is really beneficial. So I look forward to doing more of that in the future.
Okay. And for you, Forrest?
Yeah. Collaboration is key. You know, personally, I'm not someone with any sort of tennis background. I mean, I can hold my own a little bit if you throw me out there on a court, because my hand-eye coordination is decent. But other than that, you know, organizing events and, you know, all of the certain, you know, nuances and, you know, uniqueness to the tennis community is something that I'm not familiar with. So having people like Kat and other people that are on our tennis tournament committee are super crucial to the success of what we're trying to plan, because, you know, I'm just not familiar with it yet. You know, I'm working on it. You know, we'll get there to a certain point, but it's really exciting about, you know, what we're trying to achieve together. There's not really another organization like Sportable in the state of Virginia. So being able to collaborate with those organizations, you know, that are serving certain sports, so like tennis, to expand our wheelchair tennis footprint, you know, we need people like Kat that have those connections to the Charlottesville area to connect with and go run events, because we know that the potential athletes are there. And they might not just be, you know, quote unquote hooked, as like we say, you know, we go run an event and hopefully get people hooked on adaptive sports and Sportable, and then maybe they'll travel, you know, to Richmond to participate in programming. But if we have people that are local in those certain areas that, you know, like a tennis pro that can learn, you know, the basics of wheelchair tennis and serve those athletes in those areas, you know, that's probably the most efficient way for us to grow the sport. And so those events and those relationships and things that we're working on putting together this year and beyond are really going to help us, you know, grow the sport in Virginia. And I really think our tournament weekend in June is going to provide all those catalysts for opportunity to expand, whether it's the coaches workshop, the tournament itself, and getting, you know, players of all levels, whether they're high up in level A or, you know, at the junior level. We have, you know, the opportunity to serve everyone, and then the junior camp for any athletes that are, you know, under 18 years old that just aren't ready to compete yet. And then as part of Sunday of the coaches workshop, there's a community day. So any adults or athletes or even and veterans as well that qualify for wheelchair tennis can come out and participate in a clinic style opportunity for them to get introduced to the sport as well. So that's like the big thing, you know, in terms of tennis for Sportable and for Kat and I that we're really, really looking forward to. And I think after that is where we're going to, you know, we probably should start talking about what's our plan after that weekend too, because everything we're doing is leading up to June 11th through the 13th. But I think that we need to have something in place to, you know, capitalize on that momentum as well. So like those events in Charlottesville and in the Virginia Beach area, which has a huge population of people with disabilities that don't really get served enough. And then moving into Northern Virginia, there's a great tennis organization or tennis program through MedStar and NRH that we're working with to provide more opportunities. And we're just really excited about the future. So, you know, we could talk all day about what we're hopeful for and what we're excited about, but it's really that tennis tournament weekend. And then, you know, obviously we'll keep you guys updated on what other opportunities that we'd love to get more people involved with. And obviously my email inbox is open for anyone that has questions or, wants to chat more about, how to grow programming. I think, again, tennis is a really not easy one. It's all difficult to start, but it's one of the easier ones to do just because it's very similar to able-bodied. And there's often going to be, an organization like Sportable, in your state or in your region that's relatively close that may not have a tennis program that has a really good instructor or tennis pro or even tennis at all. But if they have wheelchair basketball, they have the chairs and they have the athletes. So you just need to introduce the racket and the sport and the location to them. So if you're already doing tennis, there's a good chance you can really serve, the disability population. You just need to make that connection to the local club that's nearest you. And if you need help connecting with those people, it's a widespread community across the states, but we know probably one person from that organization or know someone that knows them. So getting connected could be fairly easy. So we'd love to help support that.
Yeah. And for anyone that's wanting to connect with Kat or Forrest offline too, please feel free to reach out to Alex or myself with that, and we'll be happy to put you guys in touch. I did want to circle back as well. Jackie, thanks for being maybe voluntold to jump in there for I wanted to circle back because she mentioned some stuff that she had done from the virtual space, and I thought that might be interesting to share with you all in terms of what they were kind of doing on their end to keep the community engaged. So thanks, Jackie.
Sure. I just wanted to mention, I think that I may have met you guys if you were part of the group that came over to Virginia Tech to do an event before the pandemic. Do you remember that?
My coworker Kyle was there, and then Gary Rudd, one of our coaches, was there. I think we're running a rock climbing like adaptive clinic that weekend. I wanted to be there though, and it's exciting about the progress that they're making down there in Blacksburg.
Yeah, so I'm the president of the Blacksburg Community Tennis Association, and we have some of the same challenges that you talked about. And we did a lot of Zoom programming during the pandemic. We did. Of course, all of our committees decided to meet online, and we're probably just going to continue to do that. But then we had a tennis themed painting party, which everybody loved. We painted a picture of like a tennis court with a tennis racket leaning against. I don't know, it was some really simple thing, but everybody really loved it. We did some workout sessions. We did yoga, like you said. We did. So we got all of our local tennis pros together, and we did like a talk to the pros, ask them questions. We did a couple of those. We did a session on how to pick a racket, how to pick shoes, those kind of things. We did a few, we had one pro who did a thing where she would talk about a certain shot or a certain move, and then she wanted you to do it at home and take a video of yourself so she could analyze it. So we did, a few people did that. So we really tried to keep people engaged, and I think it did a lot. And when we first came back, we did do World Team Tennis, and that was a huge success. Everybody loved during World Team Tennis. We're a small area. We don't have a big population here. So we had 100 people do World Team Tennis, and that's like more than we've ever had do, anything. So
that's awesome.
We had a lot of new players come on board, people that wanted to learn how to play tennis because it was, socially distant, and we still have a lot of people wanting to play tennis. We don't have enough tennis pros to teach all the people that want to learn how to play tennis.
It's exciting, Jackie. Can I ask you if you know Jacob Tyree down there? Did you meet him at that tech event?
I probably did, but I just don't remember. There was a ton of people there.
Yeah, so he's a wheelchair basketball player, but he runs the Roanoke Stars team. That's could be a good resource for wheelchair tennis if you're trying to do more with that. I know he's planning on coming to either play or participate in that coaches clinic. But I mentioned to him that he should look for a potential pro who's in that area to come and do the coaches clinic so that he can play. But that could be a good connection for you if you're looking to expand more opportunities for that population moving forward.
Yep. Now we do. I mean, there's another CTA in Roanoke, which is about 45 minutes from us, and they did a lot of. They've done most of the tennis throughout the years, but about 5 years ago, we organized, because a lot of people just don't want to drive to Roanoke to play tennis. So
yeah.
But we do a lot of joint things with them. So yeah, I'm sure that I met him. I just don't remember his face off the top of my head.
No worries. I just put his email in the chat if you want to copy that and maybe connect with him, or if you want to give me your email, I can do an email connection, just because, yeah, with it being 45 minutes away, I think his population of athletes are probably anywhere from Roanoke to Blacksburg to even, into the other states that are close by. So that could be a cool opportunity to maybe put something together down there.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, appreciate you sharing as well. Kat, Forrest, thank you guys for coming on and being in the hot seat today. Just want to do a couple quick housekeeping things before we wrap up today. Just a reminder, we tasked everybody last month to start looking into putting their Serve Tennis websites together. I hope you guys have at least linked your accounts and have peeked at it. If you guys need help with that, again, we have a step-by-step guide for that. So that way you all have some resources on if you're not super tech savvy, or not the youngest of your bunch being thrown in to be the one put together, to Forrest's point there earlier on social media, that you do have some options there to put that together. With this month's task going into next month, I will just ask you all, we would like from the section office to hear from you all with maybe 2 or 3 priorities of things that you all are looking to do moving forward, that you may want some help from us. Ideally, things that are possible. Nothing is impossible, but things that maybe there's some short-term stuff or longer-term goals with that, and that way we can jump back and forth here a little bit of what do we need to do to help you all get there, because you're the heartbeat of the section in terms of the programming and stuff that you all do, and we need you guys to be not only engaged but also feeling like you're supported and having the resources that you all need to be able to be successful with your local communities. So having a better understanding, I think, for us in terms of what you all want to do as within your CTAs and things, and being able to kind of get to those goals. You guys can maybe shoot a quick email for that. I'll jump my email in, and for those that are in the Maryland section here, I'll make sure that I forward those on for Alex as well. But I just want to make sure we want to just make sure that you all have a plan with that, and we can help you guys meet your goals and things. See Jackie's question here with the other CTA reps. I mean, yes, to your question, Jackie, I mean, our goal is that we're using this as an outlet to start connecting and introducing the different CTAs and things with that. As we move forward with these, we also like, obviously all of the CTAs participate with it as well. If there's certain areas or certain groups that you're looking for, and that's again why we're kind of doing this exercise with the resource piece, as we're talking to all of you individually. If you're in the adult space and you're trying to do some adult stuff, there may be a similar group that's doing something that's not that far from you, and maybe we just do the introduction to put you guys in the same email chain or on a phone call together to kind of kick off some of those conversations as well with that. So we definitely want to help that, but I think for us it's just continuing to better understand some of those needs. We appreciate everybody with the phone outreach too. I know our team with Alex Santosh and myself, I think we connected with pretty much everybody from the CTA space, so that was super helpful just to kind of get get to know you guys a little bit and obviously get a better understanding of some of the initial priorities and goals with the team. But we definitely want to make sure that we, moving forward here, kind of get a sense of, you know, what those next goals for everybody is, and talk about like how do we get there with that. So that being said, any other questions or comments or anything before we let you go? I'll give it a second here. And while that's going on as well, I just want to also mention, and Linda, I see your question as well about the list of the CTAs. We do have an internal list that we're trying to update from our end. Some of those are active, some of those are not. So we are trying to clean up that list a little bit. And again, we're trying to use this lunch and learn a little bit to be able to bring those on that want to collaborate on a more section level. So those are continuing conversations our team's having to try to bring more people into the room with that as well. And you know, at least for the first couple here, it seems like a lot of you all are pretty good about sharing contact information and things like that. I know some others are very specific mission focused. So we're hoping moving forward that they see the value in sharing resources and contacts as well with that. So, you know, again, we're trying to respect those that are not sharing at the moment, but at the same time too, we definitely want to help as well. And yeah, always good too, because Forrest is taking advantage of he's got the platform here, so you know, anything you guys are doing too, so people know what's going on as well. So glad to see. So definitely check out Forrest's event coming up here also. And then we're also, as we move forward with these two, we're also looking for other CTAs that are interested in being presenters, being in the hot seat for it. I promise it's not too bad. We'll go very specific in anything that you all feel you're super knowledgeable with, or things that you guys are doing within your CTA that you want to highlight across the section. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out, or if not, we will probably reach out to you. So that being said, appreciate everybody's time today, and we'll talk again next month.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.